President Nicolás Maduro called for unity between the Colombian and Venezuelan peoples in the face of destabilizing attempts by the United States against the region. Tropical storm Melissa wreaks havoc in Haiti as Caribbean authorities prepare for the arrival of the storm that is said to become a hurricane in the next 24 hours. And in Palestine, Israeli occupation forces continue to violate the ceasefire agreement with demolitions and attacks against the Gaza Strip. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. President Nicolás Maduro called for unity between the Colombian and Venezuelan peoples in the face of destabilizing attempts by the United States against the region. During his meeting with the El Gran Topo commune, President Nicolás Maduro highlighted the importance of such brotherhood for achieving peace and building shared prosperity. In this regard, President Maduro highlighted that in the face of the inability to accuse Venezuela of possessing weapons of mass destruction, the U.S. government has opted to construct a false and offensive narrative against the country. He also reiterated that 94% of the Venezuelan people are against the threat of a military invasion and those who call for it. On the other hand, the president reiterated that Venezuela is a country free from the production of coca leaves.
Venezuela continued advancing in its policies against drugs, and now we have a completely free country in terms of drug trafficking. As they cannot say that Maduro has chemical weapons, for example, because they cannot repeat history like this, I tell the people of the U.S., this is vulgar, this is false, this is completely a way of denying reality, the narrative that they're trying to impose on Venezuela of the Bolivarian Revolution and this worker president, the president that walks day to day with the people, Nicolás Maduro Moros.
Also, the Venezuelan president asserted that Venezuela is a country free of coca leaf production and reaffirmed the state's commitment to achieving 100% control over the 5% of drug trafficking that comes from Colombia.
It has been proven that Venezuela is a country free of coca leaf production.
De hoja de coca, libre de producción de cocaína.
And cocaine manufacturing, and we are going to achieve 100% freedom from the minuscule 5% of drug trafficking that comes from Colombia.
Que viene de Colombia. Lo vamos a lograr.
We will achieve this, and this achievement is a virtue and a great advance for the Bolivarian Revolution of the 21st century.
De la revolución bolivariana del siglo XXI.
Likewise, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro emphasized that the U.S. government has chosen to construct a false, criminal, and offensive narrative against Venezuela.
Y dice que somos locos también.
Now they underestimate us and say that we are crazy too and make up stories. They can't say anything because no one believes what they say.
En Venezuela tenemos armas de destrucción masiva. No se han atrevido a decirlo, por lo menos.
Because they couldn't say that Maduro and Venezuela have weapons of mass destruction. They haven't dared to say it. At least they can't say that we are building a nuclear weapon.
A las ciudades de Estados Unidos no lo pueden decir, ¿verdad? Y como no pueden decirlo, se inventan.
They can't say that we have missiles pointed at the cities of the United States. They can't say it, can they? And since they can't say it, they make up an extravagant, vulgar, criminal, and totally false story.
Ya demostradamente falso.
Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez announced the steps to revoke the citizenship of far-right politician Leopoldo López after he called for foreign sanctions and intervention against the country. The Vice President stated, yesterday the President of the Republic, Nicolás Maduro, filed an appeal with the Supreme Court of Justice to revoke the citizenship of Leopoldo López in accordance with Article 130 of the Constitution of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and Liberator Simón Bolívar Organic Law, due to his grotesque, criminal and illegal call for the military invasion of Venezuela, the permanent promotion of the economic blockade, as well as the call for the mass murder of Venezuelans in complicity with foreign governments and enemies. Finally, she specified the Foreign Ministry and the Customs Office will immediately proceed in accordance with the relevant legal steps to cancel the passport of the above-mentioned individual. The Venezuelan state has sufficient resources to guarantee the territorial integrity and sovereignty of the Republic against foreign powers and those who seek to undermine national independence. And Brazil will not accept any foreign intervention in Venezuela. This was stated on Friday in Brasilia by Celso Amorim, the presidential advisor for foreign policy and one of the most influential voices in President Luis Ignacio da Silva's administration. In an interview with a European media outlet, Amorim reaffirmed that the decision over who should govern Venezuela belongs exclusively to the Venezuelan people, warning that any invasion of the neighboring country could set the entire region on fire and trigger serious crises across the continent. The diplomat also voiced Brazil's rejection of extrajudicial executions in the Caribbean and covert operations by the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, emphasizing that his government does not want regional turmoil. Finally, he expressed deep concern over recent U.S. attacks on vessels in the Caribbean, saying they were carried out without any evidence linking them to criminal activity.
What we really cannot accept is external intervention, because ID will not be accepted. ID will generate immense resentment in Brazil, also creating real refugee problems in Colombia, which could set South America ablaze. Brazil is clearly concerned about the use of force or the threat of its use, that is, the threat of clandestine methods such as those used by the CIA to overthrow governments.
And 10 former heads of government from CARICOM issue a strong call to preserve the region as a zone of peace in light of the increasing presence of nuclear vessels and aircraft in the Caribbean. In a joint statement titled Caribbean Space, a Zone of Peace on Land, Sea and Airspace, where the rule of law prevails, the former leaders declared that the Caribbean must not be drawn into global conflicts not of our making. They urged immediate restraint to preserve the Caribbean as a zone of peace, warning that the region must avoid allowing the hosting or deployment of foreign military assets that could entangle it in external conflicts or expose it to collateral harm. In this context, the statement is endorsed by Baldwin Spencer, former Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Said Musa and Dean Barrow, former Prime Ministers of Belize, Fundel Stewart, former Prime Minister of Barbados, Edison James, former Prime Minister of Dominica, Tillman Thomas, former Prime Minister of Grenada, Donald Ramotar of Grenada, Donald Ramotar, former President of Guyana, Bruce Golding, and P.J. Patterson, former Prime Minister of Jamaica, Kenny Anthony, former Prime Minister of St. Lucia, were these 10 regional statesmen representing decades of combined leadership within the Caribbean community, has called for a united stand to preserve regional sovereignty, peace, and stability. We now have a first break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English. You'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. The member governments of the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our America decided to suspend the far-right government that will take office in the plurinational state of Bolivia because its anti-Bolivarian, anti-Latin American, pro-imperialist and colonialist behavior is not in line with the principles of the alliance. Through an official communique, the bloc stated the suspension does not affect the permanent, affectionate and supportive ties we maintain with the Bolivian people, with whom we will continue to work and accompany in their development and well-being. We declared that the public statements issued against Cuba, Venezuela and Nicaragua by the far-right government are totally unacceptable as they disregard the principles of respect, sovereignty and cooperation that underpin the integration of the peoples of our America and the founding values of the alliance. The statement continues, the ALBA countries have accompanied the Bolivian people since their integration, contributing to historic achievements in education, health and economic development. More than 1 million people have become literate, through popular education programs. More than 3 million Bolivians served through the Milagro mission and other health programs, significant investments in various sectors of the economy, and a prominent international presence defending Bolivarian principles and Latin American unity. Thanks to this alliance, the voice of the Bolivian people has resonated strongly in America and around the world. It concludes, we reaffirm our commitment to continue working alongside the Bolivian people, defending their rights and their social and economic development, and ensuring that the alliance remains a space for solidarity, cooperation, and justice. This suspension will remain in effect while the political conditions in Bolivia are evaluated, with the aim of protecting the founding principles of ALBA and ensuring that the organization continues to be an instrument of unity, sovereignty, and social justice for all the peoples of our America. And in Bolivia, a virtual platform was set up with documents, photos, and videos about human rights violations committed by the military dictatorship that controlled the country for 18 years under the so-called Plan Condor. Freddy Morales has the details.
La plataforma fue habilitada por el Ministerio de Justicia.
The platform was established by the Ministry of Justice and was developed jointly by victims and family members of the military dictatorships that controlled the country between 1964 and 1982.
Como dice el título de los documentales.
As the title of the document states, the objective is to keep alive the voices of a memory that is present here, so that this never happens again.
Para que justamente no vuelva a suceder esto.
Invitamos a todos aquellos.
We invite anyone who has material and wants to share it to become part of the platform. Please send it to us, because this platform belongs to you.
Porque esta plataforma es de ustedes.
Este paseo de la memoria.
This memory tour responds to international recommendations for countries that have suffered military dictatorships with flagrant violations of human rights.
Poder legislativo no existían.
There was no legislative power. We did not elect senators, representatives, or mayors. What kind of country was that back then? And all of this was mixed up with the issue of military dictatorships, constant coups.
Todo esto se mezclaba con la cuestión de los.
So our struggle was for social change, but also for the full enforcement of the state's political constitution. That seems like a paradox, and many people died for that.
También por la plena vigencia de la Constitución Política del Estado.
Este sitio forma parte de las recomendaciones.
This site is part of the recommendations of organizations such as the Truth Commission, international organizations, and an agreement signed by the state with the victims of military dictatorships.
La ofrenda de vidas ha permitido volver a la democracia, volver a
The sacrifice of lives has allowed us to return to democracy, to regain freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, and freedom of thought, which were once frustrated in our country. We have lived through a long period of dictatorial governments that did not allow the people to exercise the most basic human rights.
el ejercicio del más mínimo de los derechos humanos.
Según los expertos, este es un mecanismo.
According to experts, this is a mechanism for preserving historical memory and ensuring that such events are not repeated.
Hemos querido en algún momento tratar de
When we embarked on this project in constant coordination with the victims, we received a lot of information. At some point, we wanted to try to recover a physical space where the victims had been, and where arrests had taken place. Unfortunately, many in the past did not have the vision to start something. Many of the places that were historical references have now been completely changed. They do not preserve that memory as other countries have done.
Hoy se han modificado completamente.
Los datos más conservadores señalan que durante
The most conservative data indicate that during the military dictatorships from 1964 to 1982, there were more than 150 disappearances and 500 murders, in addition to 1,000 political prisoners and another 1,000 exiles. In addition, the disappearance of 12 children has been reported.
Freddy Morales, teleSUR, Bolivia.
We now have our second break coming up. Before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on rules, messages, and events. A final break, don't go away. Welcome back. The Caribbean region, Haiti, Jamaica, and Cuba are bracing for the impact of Tropical Storm Melissa Present Melissa is expected to linger for several days near Jamaica with a very slow west and north progression. By early next week, it is expected to become a Category 5 hurricane. Regardless of whether or not Melissa becomes an actual Category 5 storm, by its wind speeds, this storm is expected to bring catastrophic amounts of rain, which pose a serious risk for flash flooding and landslides across portions of Jamaica, southern Dominican Republic, and southern Haiti. The U.S. National Hurricane Center is forecasting 25 inches of rain for parts of Jamaica and up to 35 inches of rain for southern Haiti through the middle of next week. And in this context, Tropical Storm Melissa has left at least 4 dead and a dozen injured in Haiti, most of the fatalities being caused by a landslide in Fontamara, Port-au-Prince. Well, authorities issued an orange alert in the southeastern departments of the country due to the impact of the weather event. The Ministry of Civil Protection of the Caribbean nation is carrying out protection and evacuation operations due to heavy rains and the risk of flooding in the insular areas of the country. They also report that these rainfalls caused the Saint Martin River to flood in the west of the country and the destruction of several homes in the northwest in Port-au-Prince. Meanwhile, Cuban civil defense intensified security measures in the east of the country and Camagüey as Tropical Storm Melissa approaches, while authorities maintain close attention to the storm's development as it threatens the island's territory. Precisely in the east, work is underway with the tree pruning, sewer cleaning, and evacuation strategies. The Civil Defense Ministry said the main objective is to protect people's lives as well as materials, resources, animals, and agricultural products. And the Israeli army continues to violate the ceasefire with demolitions and attacks against the Gaza Strip. Gaza Ministry of Health reported 19 people killed and 7 wounded in the last 48 hours, bringing the total to over 68,519 dead and 170,000 wounded since the aggression began. The health authorities stated that the occupation forces demolished several residential buildings in the south of the Gaza Strip. The UN agency UNRWA warned of the growing need for shelters and winter supplies and also denounced the Israeli blockade on the entry of aid materials stored in Jordan and Egypt. And China has taken the first step in preparing its plans for the next 5 years. The Central Committee of the Communist Party met to begin discussions on the plan, which is expected to be finalized in March of next year. A correspondent in Beijing, Mauro Ramos, with the details.
This
week, the Communist Party of China held the 4th plenary session of its 20th Central Committee in Beijing. The meeting approved recommendations for the 15th five-year plan for economic and social development, which will cover the period from 2026 to 2030. At a press conference held by the Central Committee on Friday, the director of the Central Rural Work Leadership Group Office, Han Wenxiu, responded to Brasil de Fado on how the plan should move forward and maintain the achievements of anti-poverty policies in the next period.
It is necessary to establish and improve a regular monitoring system to prevent a return to poverty and the emergence of new cases, identifying with scientific precision the groups that need assistance and making periodic dynamic adjustments. For those who can work, we must strengthen sectoral support and employment assistance, helping them to prosper through work. For those who cannot work, it is essential to ensure their basic needs are met through measures such as social assistance. In short, our goal is to ensure that the rural population enjoys an ever more prosperous life, moving forward together toward a future of modernization, under the Chinese model.
Los planes quinquenales han sido instrumentos fundamentales.
5-year plans have been fundamental to guiding China's development. Li Go, president of the Chungkiu Institute of Development and Strategic Studies in Shanghai, explains their importance.
China defined the EV goal already in the 10th 5-year plan, which means 20 years ago. Yeah. And then step up by every next 5 years plan. So I received a German visitor days ago, and then say why the private household can easily buy the EV and then get charged everywhere. I said, because the city planning did this 15 years ago already.
El 15º plan quinquenal es fundamental para
The 15th five-year plan is critical to achieving basic socialist modernization by 2035. China also takes the geopolitical situation into account in its planning, as Li Bo explains.
China is facing a trade war and a decoupling, de-risking policy by the US and the EU. Because China will stand with Russia, and then against the hegemony power. And then the struggle will have actually get more fronts. So we'll be prepared for any kind of conflict. So in that sense, China needs to develop their fully independence in their technological development.
Desde Beijing para Telesur, Mauro Ramos.
And Southeast Asian foreign ministers opened talks on Saturday ahead of a landmark Asian summit that will formally welcome East Timor as the bloc's 11th member. The meeting is scheduled for Sunday in Kuala Lumpur, followed by 2 days of high-level meetings with key partners such as China, Japan, India, Australia, Russia, South Korea, and the United States. This year's edition is a milestone for ASEAN as it welcomes a new member for the first time in 26 years. The event, in addition, features the participation of Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva and his South African counterpart Cyril Ramaphosa, new partners in the sectoral dialogue as part of Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim's effort to deepen Asia's economic ties with Africa and Latin America. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.